All right, hopefully you guys can hear me, and now you should be able to see me. Cool. So today, don't have too much time. I'm going to keep it pretty brief. One of my buddies asked me to showcase the various kind of transposition stuff that the Squarp Hapax can do. So I'm just going to spend the full time looking at the Hapax once I switch away from my self view here. But for the purposes of the modular, the only thing that really is going on here is I just have MIDI going directly into the poly cinematic, and then that's going into the mixer. Nothing too fancy. This is really just to showcase the features of the Hapax. Hapax, Hapax, hypoxia, whatever you want to call it. It is a word that is used only once, so this word will be bananas. Can't say it again. I can't even tell you what the word was. I forgot already, but I only used it one time. Cool, so let me switch over. So we have the Hapax. So what I have set up at the moment is, if we look at my project, I have P scale on, key of C major, just for the sake of the demo. I also have P transpose on, which means project transpose. So any track that has or is set up to respond to the project transpose will use that. And basically what happens is it takes over track 16, and track 16 over here becomes our transpose track. And you can see that it's taken over because it's flashing. And it also is nice because it says on the button TRSP for transpose. So at the moment, does the Hapax have CV out? It does have CV out. I am not using it. I am using the FH2, though not for this demo. But it does have a bunch. 4 CV outs, 4 gate outs. I don't know if you guys can see that. Plus 2 CV in, but I'm not using it. So yeah, so I have the P transposed on track 16, and I have track 1, which is what we're messing with, is basically just going up to the Nobula polycinematic. And if I go to second, we can see that P transpose is on and P scale is on. So first, I just want to show this is the poly grid mode with the scale on. And so if you've seen a Launchpad or a Linstrument or a push, the Ableton push, it's the same idea here. Right, we can get a full scale just by working up the keyboard. We can drop octaves down here. We can do cool things where we do, you can, by using 2 hands on it, right, you can do some really cool stuff. I love this mode just to kind of noodle around on. It's really fun. Everything's in scale. You can't really mess it up too bad, which is nice. The other thing that this is doing, which is kind of neat, is you can change how the grid is laid out with this jump section over here. So with the jump, if I change this to 4, you can see it's switching how it is jumping the notes around. So with scale on and with jump set to 3, this is basically fourths. So all of a sudden your chord shapes are really nice because the 3 kind of triangle notes here is a major, or is basically a triad. And that's true anywhere on the keyboard, which is really cool. You even have your diminished and stuff like that as well. So because it's all in scale, you don't have to worry about that, which is nice. All right. If I'm going fast and people are in chat and see this, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep going through here. So that is the normal, what they call the poly mode for live play. Next, let's take a look at the chord mode. So I get to chord mode by holding live, and you see this box pops up here, and then I turn the main encoder, will take me into chord mode. So chord mode, you can see there's these buttons on the bottom, and then there's this kind of block of buttons up here. And the way this is laid out is these are your chords, and these are modifiers for the chords. So we can do, the top row is triads, and the bottom row adds the 7th. So to turn up the octave here. There we go. Right? That's our standard, you know, chords across the octave for the scale. So really quick, how do I like the polycinematic? It is probably my favorite. No, that's not even true. It is directly my favorite polyphonic Eurorack capable module. The reason I say Eurorack capable is because it really does need MIDI to kind of function. So if your rack is built up to kind of handle MIDI cleanly, it is amazing. And there's nothing else that even compares to it. It is super simple to use. It sounds amazing. But it does require MIDI, and specifically it needs TRS MIDI, which not everything has. A lot of the sequencers that I use either have TRS MIDI directly or have expanders that can provide it, or I have adapter cables and stuff like that. But you really need to be able to do MIDI to it. I haven't really used it with just CV, but it's really built to be a kind of MIDI first module that happens to be outputting at your rack level, so you can send it through other stuff. So, as a little tangent. So, chords, right? We have all our standard chords across the octave. We also have our sevenths. And then these kind of grayed out areas, if I remember right, they're just continuations down, slight parts of the octave. So not the full way up or down in either direction, but they are there available too if you don't want to switch. And you can switch octaves really easily. You can turn the knob, or you can just press up and down on the arrow pad and it does the same thing. Why do you choose the Hapax over the Pyramid? I think the Pyramid is still really solid, but the Hapax is definitely a big step up, and just in terms of like hardware quality, feature set, stuff like that. And it's clearly like, I can't speak to Squarp specifically, but they've definitely positioned it as being the kind of flagship sequencer that they're making. The Pyramid has been around for a long time. I don't know that it's going to be getting much more support beyond kind of, maybe a few bug fixes and stuff like that. That said, the Pyramid did get a lot of firmware updates, and it's still a really solid device. So if you don't need the features that the Hapax offers, the Pyramid is still really great. I really enjoyed it when I had it. I sold mine to my friend who lives down the street. He really likes it. It's kind of his main sequencer that he uses for just about everything. So still a really good device, but the Hapax is definitely kind of the path forward. Okay, so that covers this bottom row of chord buttons down here. What do these buttons do? Well, these are our modifiers. So you can hold down any modifier and you can see what it does in this little bottom box here. So we can rotate, we can do power chords, suspended chords, we can add a 6, we can add a 6 and a 9, we can do octave transposition, we can add and move, we can spread, we can transpose, all that fun stuff. We can add additional bass notes. So for example, if I do, you can hopefully hear that extra bass comes in. It sounds really nice. So the idea being like, you can do some really cool stuff just playing with these. So like here's, right, if you want to do things like suspended chords and all that stuff, that's all they are really handy to play with. The thing you can do if you don't want to be kind of two-handed, or you're just kind of messing around, you can latch things. So like, let's say I wanted suspended with the additional bass and let's say spread down. What does that sound like? So you can do some really kind of rich stuff. I think it limits you to 4. Yeah. So you get 4 options to pick, which is, decent. It's not like, at a certain point, you're just playing every note in the scale, so it kind of makes sense to me that they're limiting it to 4, but like, that's pretty powerful. Sounds pretty luxurious to me. So that is the chord mode. So when you're using the chord mode, there's kind of 2 ways to take those chords and translate them into sequences. One is you can just record directly in with the record button, playing it like you would a normal keyboard, except for you're playing chords instead of keys. The other way is if you have a chord that you like. So let's say I have my C major sus2. Now if I'm doing my kind of step editing on my pattern, I can go over here to step, and you can see at the top, it's grayed out at the moment, and we'll change that in a second. It says learn C+2. So that means the C plus some additional notes. So if I just do nothing right now, it's just going to put in a C. But if I click my encoder up at the top, now you can see that it says learn C+2. And so now if I click any note on my my keyboard here, my grid, it will put in that for me. Right? There's our chord. Now if I want to do that again, maybe I just want the regular C major chord this time. Go back here, select it, go back to live, put it back in. Works like a charm. The back and forth I think is not perfect. You know, I think there could be other ways to do it. It's not super cumbersome, but just kind of remembering that you need to click on learn mode, I think is a little, you know, can be a little bit annoying. It's not that bad. The important thing to know is once the notes are on the grid, these notes are individual things. So you can move them around, you can delete them, you can mess it up just like I did. Let's hit that undo button. If I can find it. Undo. There we go. I can go back to where I was, which is really nice. Oh man, sequencers with undo. What an amazing thing. Electron, where are you at? Give me that undo. Anyway, so each of these notes are individual. So I can change the length of one note if I wanted to. I can make this note have only occur every 2 times around or something like that. If I want to do weird stuff. Let me change the, there we go. So you get the idea, right? Like you can do some really nice stuff with that and be able to manipulate individual notes after you've put the chord onto the grid. Because once it's, you know, put in, you know, kind of pasted into the sequence grid, it's there, you can manipulate it however you want. So that is chord mode. Let's talk more about scales and transpose because we haven't really used that yet. So the way I want to demo this, I'm going to turn down the reverb and turn down the attack on my Nobula. So now it should just be nice plucky notes. If we go back to live, switch it back to scale mode. Alright, you get your normal notes. I'm going to put in a sequence on my track here that is just the C major scale. Cool. So now we have our scale playing, and note that this is currently all on track 1. This is a pattern just on track 1. We have no patterns yet on the transpose track. And just a quick recap, we have P transpose on, P scale on, which says project scale, project transpose are both on. For track 1, it is set to use P transpose and P scale. And the way I got to those settings was by holding second and then pressing the track button. So second 1 in this case, or holding down project, or if I say second project, nope, never mind. Just holding down project gives you the settings for it. So again, we have C major going. Now let's mess around with transposing that. And because this was fixed in firmware 1.01 and then subsequent furthers on, but because project scale is on, any transpositions we do will be stuck to the scale, which is a good thing. That means like you can't mess it up too bad because you're always going to be within the given scale. So if I go to my pattern, now again, we are on track 16 at the moment. We have no notes here. Let's turn the project length way down, or the pattern length way down. 32 bars is way too long. Let's just do 4 bars for now. Cool. So now each block is going to be 4 bars. We're going to want the block to be 16, or each note on the transpose to be 16 steps long, which will be 1 bar. We're going to start by just having it play the same root note throughout. And note C4 here. This is important because the transpose does transpose octaves. Just a heads up. If you didn't know that, the transpose track does shift octaves too. You can see it's already lower. Cool. So if I want to transpose that back up, I can say go to C5. You can see, you can hear, I guess, but you can also see it that the track that we're playing, track 1, even though the notes were entered for C4, they've been transposed up or down accordingly. So going back to 16, cool. So that's interesting, right? We can at least, do kind of octave transposes just based off of this. We can do funky stuff where I say, this one I want to be up an octave, this last one I want to be down an octave. Cool. Not super exciting yet. The cool thing is, and let's go to a different pattern on this. Don't want 8 bars, I still want just 4 bars. So now let's get weird about it. What if instead of the root note, let's start with the root, but then let's go up to the 3rd, and then we'll go up to the, actually we'll do root, 5th, 6th, 4th. Let's see what that sounds like. So, interesting things are happening, right? Now we're transposing the track up, but it is sticking still to the scale. And so for the most part, that sounded fine, except for this last one, where you can tell just by the way it's, kind of forcing a note to be either, up or down if it doesn't fall directly on the appropriate scale note. It's making a choice, and that choice is not necessarily always perfect. I think in this case, right, it's probably the, whatever the 7th is probably being shifted incorrectly, or quote unquote incorrectly, so it's getting stuck to the 2nd note again. But that means we can do really interesting things musically. So let's go create a new pattern on track 1, and this time I'm going to just put in a triad. And I say triad because it's going to look like the major, C major, because I'm just going to use root 3rd and 5th. But with the transpose on, you're going to hear something interesting, I hope. We'll see. This is to be tested. But so I want to say we can actually change the length of this to be just 1 bar. And if I go back to my steps, now I want to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So now let's hear what this sounds like. Isn't that cool? Let me transpose this down just on the pattern so it's not quite as whiny. If I say all and then turn my encoder to the left to turn it down 2 ticks. Cool. So that's really neat. And if you are familiar at all with the ACL Symphonian, this is an approximation of the feature set that the Symphonian can do, but it can do it over MIDI, which is unique. The Symphonian itself is basically a CV transposing module. So you can set a chord progression and then use CV to kind of change over the chord progression, and then basically manipulate notes on top of the chord progression so they all kind of adhere within the given scale and stuff like that. So this is like that, not perfect, but it's like that. So now the interesting things and limitations of this is it's limited to, if you want it to stick to a scale, it is limited to the scale of the project. I don't think there is a way to change the scaling of the project, to my knowledge anyway. If somebody does know about that, put it in the comments. But for example, you are limited to the chords within a given scale, which means if you wanted to like borrow chords from another scale, I don't know that you could necessarily do that at the moment with the way they've implemented it. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe I'm wrong. Somebody is in the, watching in the comments or watching this later can let me know if I got this wrong. Please do so. But I don't think there's a way to kind of borrow chords from other scales at the moment because you are constrained and constraining your transpose track to the scale that you chose for the project. Cool. So let's just kind of mess around here, right? What if we want to change our chord progression? What if we do second left to double this? I want this note to be the second and this one to go up to the 7th. Maybe not that one because that'll be the diminished. What does this sound like? So that's pretty neat, right? And the cool thing is because these are sequences themselves, like you can store, up to 8 of them and transpose your track however you want. And sequences can also be really long. So I think we set this one to be 4 bars, but if we go back to step and hold this down, or sorry, now it's 8 bars, but it was 4 originally. But we can set this, let me see if I can do this so you can see it. 32 bars is the max. 32 bars, especially depending on what tempo you're at, that's a lot. So like you can construct full kind of chord progressions over the course of one pattern for your transpose track and have it play across a full song if you wanted to. So that's pretty neat. Yeah. So the other, let's talk about effects. So right now we just have our very vanilla chords. That are being transposed in, which is cool. Let's add a 7th on this one and a 7th on that one just for the hell of it. So one of the cool, fun things that you can do with the Hapax, and you can do something similar with the Pyramid too. I will give the Pyramid credit because it kind of pioneered a lot of the effects and stuff. And this is kind of unique to Squarp. I think Hermod can do something similar, but we have all of these cool effects. So one of the ones that I've been having fun with is the combination of the Arpeggiator plus the Euclidean sequencer. So if I just do nothing, let's hear how this sounds. I'm going to give it some more pulses. let's change how fast it's arpeggiating. Let's just turn this up. Easy mode. I mean, come on, like that's pretty cool right there. Like there's not a lot to that, right? We have exactly, well, if you discount the other ones that we were experimenting with, we have 3 patterns here, right? We have our transpose track. I threw in a very, very basic drum track, and we have our chord progression, air quotes, because it's literally the same chord repeated over and it's being transposed. But if I throw in a couple effects, I can do all sorts of fun stuff. Now, what if we take this further? First off, let's just kind of double the pattern length here. Boom, boom. Now, let's automate the effects on this track. So I want to add in automation for the, yeah, we can call it style, for the arpeggiator, and I want to add in automation for the pulses and for the steps. And I want interpolation off for this one, and this one. Yep, cool. So now we can do some fun stuff where we use the automation lanes on the Hapax to modulate the MIDI effects. So let's say I want Euclidean steps, I want that to be, we'll put one here, 27. 27's high. Let's drop it down to 13, and I want pulses to be 13 is too low, 10, 9, 9. Cool. And over here we're going to bring that up. Over here we'll drop it down. We'll also change our step value to be lower as well. Change this up here, and on pulses we will make this higher as well. So let's do just this. So already, right, we get a much more kind of rhythmically and melodically more interesting, because we're like basically changing how the arpeggiator and Euclidean sequencer are working on the fly with respect to our pattern, which is really cool. So let's do the same thing for the arpeggiator. Let's see, if I put one down here, this is assigned, that's fine. Let's go back here, we'll change it to down, up, and this should be random. Yep. do some cool stuff because we can point multiple tracks to the same MIDI output. So everything we've been doing has been on track 1 so far. We also have the transpose track going. Let's use track 2 and let's point it at our same Nobula polycinematic. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this to just kind of strum on some chords down below here. So if I go to step, we're going to put in, change these to 4, boom, and we'll make these ones, this last one a little bit shorter, and we'll double it up. Cool. You get the idea. The song mode, well, not the song mode, I guess we haven't messed with the song mode, but the chords, the transpose, scales, effects, right? There's a lot you can do here, and with very simple patterns, right? Like these patterns don't look anything complex. You know, we have basically just chords and with the transpose track. But because we can add all the automation and stuff like that on top of it, you know, we can do some really powerful stuff. That's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful. If you guys are looking at the Hapax, hopefully you learned something from this. If you guys like this, let me know in the comments. If you guys have questions or stuff that you want me to check out next time, also please let me know. For now, I will say thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drink your coffee. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.